Hello and welcome to the Farming Week, the podcast from Agriland keeping you up to date with all the latest in Irish agriculture. I'm Charles O'Donnell and I'm joined this week by Stella, Meehan and Breifne O'Brien. Well, unfortunately there's been no let-up in the rain in last week. As we're recording here on Friday morning, there are still a number of weather warnings in place, and you can check out the details of those on Agriland's weather update article from this morning. We'll start this week, of course, with Larry Murrin, the under-fire chairperson of the board of Bord Bia, who appeared before the Joint Oireachtas Committee on Agriculture and Food yesterday. Murrin was there to answer questions over his company, Don Farm Foods, and its sourcing of a small quantity of beef from Brazil, which farm organisations and some politicians believe clashes with his role as chair of the body tasked with promoting Irish food. Everyone here in Agriland was glued to the Oireachtas Committee yesterday for Murrin's appearance, Stella. So what did he have to say?
Yeah, Charles, it has been a week of all things Bord Bia in some ways. Now, as you mentioned, Chair of Bord Bia, Larry Murrin, appeared before that Oireachtas Joint Committee on Agriculture to answer questions about his position as Chair and how that lies with his work at Dawn Farms, which he confirmed sources some beef in Brazil when required. Now, firstly, before his appearance at the Oireachtas Committee, farmers mobilised. They have been protesting at the headquarters of Bord Bia for a second week, and it escalated somewhat this week when they moved from protesting outside the building in Dublin to then moving inside to occupy the reception area where they still remain. Bord Bia staff claim that they entered the building under false pretences and that it's unacceptable and somewhat intimidating for staff there. The IFA argued that it will not give up its protest until Larry Murrin is removed from his position as chair of the Bord Bia board, arguing that his position is untenable. It wasn't just the IFA, though, that then took to the protest outside the gates of Leinster House as Murrin was due to appear before that Joint Oireachtas Committee yesterday. Many other farm organisations and groups turned up at Kildare Street with placards and signs calling for Murrin to be removed from his position, including the ICMSA, the ICSA and others. So let's hear a little of what they had to say.
I think it's an absolute disaster what they have done and the way it's been conducted. We have the chairman of Bord Bia who is importing, and he has admitted he's importing Brazilian beef.
Our position hasn't changed. I think it's done irreparable damage to the reputation of Bord Bia among farmers.
What we need is a solution to this. There's far more issues out there than just the Bord Bia issue.
I'm here to see that fair play is done today, that Larry Murrin would step down from his position. His position is non-tenable.
Then, of course, the actual committee meeting got underway inside around 12:30 p.m. and it went on for about 3 hours. So members of the Oireachtas, both TDs and senators in government and in opposition, had the opportunity to ask Larry Murrin questions. He seemed confident in his responses, although some politicians present accused him of running down the clock. He outlined the reasons agri-businesses such as Dawn Foods have contingency plans in place and alternative sources of raw materials lined up, such as Brazil, in order to win multi-million euro contracts, which he said directly benefit Irish producers. He told the committee that he does not accept ultimatums from anyone but his wife, and was open to dialogue with farm organisations such as the IFA, which has so far refused to meet him and have such a meeting. Murrin told the members of the committee that as the son of a farmer, he said farming shaped his values and his work ethic, adding that he fully respected farmers' right to voice their concern, but he was adamant that there is no conflict of interest, no incompatibility, no wrongdoing or anything untoward being undertaken. Let's hear a little from his contributions to the committee now.
I want to say this clearly at the outset. I have enormous respect for Irish farmers. I'm the son of a farmer from County Meath. Farming shaped my values, my work ethic, and my understanding of markets. Today, many part-time farmers work across my business at every level of the organisation, and my company is fundamentally connected to Irish agriculture, economically, socially and personally. It's also important to clarify my role as chair of Bord Bia. It is a non-executive position. As a chair, I do not manage day-to-day operations, run quality assurance programs or manage the organisation. That is the role of the CEO and the executive leadership team. I applied for this role because I bring the perspective of international markets and global customers, experience that matters for an export-led organisation such as Bord Bia.
Murrin added, Charles, that he is not a champion for Brazil, but that the fact is that it is the biggest beef exporter in the world, and that when trying to secure a major contract, customers want to know that you'll be able to continue supplying them even if something happens to the supply chain in Ireland. He said that more than 50% of Dawn Farm's beef supply is sourced from Ireland, with 1% in 2025 from Brazil and the rest from places such as the UK and Europe. He also said that the company sources some of its poultry from Brazil. And by the way, Charles, poultry farmers and other members of the IFA also staged a demonstration in County Monaghan before the committee meeting yesterday too, outlining their dissatisfaction at Murrin being kept in his role at Bord Bia. Murrin added that he at all times disclosed his business interests to Bord Bia when applying for the position as chair. And he added that he is open to dialogue with farm organisations on the matter in an effort to resolve the stalemate. However, farmers' concerns were apparently not quelled by Murrin's appearance at the Oireachtas committee, and the IFA seems resolute in its determination to have Murrin removed from the role of Bord Bia chair. Now, Agriland will keep on top of all aspects in this issue as they happen and will provide the bona fides facts in the matter, regardless of any misinformation or disinformation on social media. It's important to report on the facts on all sides in a balanced manner to allow people to make up their own minds then in that respect based on factual information.
Yeah, very well said, Stella. We'll move on now and bring you the latest on Bluetongue. There's been no additional cases confirmed since last week's podcast, which is of course welcome, although there is still a lot of concern surrounding the fact that Bluetongue has entered Ireland. There were some updates in the last week, however, surrounding Bluetongue vaccines, and maybe, Stella, you can bring us up to speed in that area.
Yes, so we know that Bluetongue has been detected in cattle in this country. And while the immediate pressing risk is low at the moment because the virus cannot spread in low temperatures, once the warmer temperatures start to come around April and May, it'll be a decision farmers have to make on whether they want to vaccinate their livestock for Bluetongue. So last December, Minister for Agriculture Martin Hayden announced that the use of Bluetongue vaccination will be permitted in cattle and sheep in Ireland in 2026. The department is advising cattle and sheep farmers who are concerned about the risk of Bluetongue to discuss with their vet about whether the use of the BTV3 vaccines, that's Bluetongue vaccines, is the right choice for their circumstances. So DAFM said that the vaccines do not fully stop infection or disease, but they do greatly reduce the severity of the clinical symptoms. Now, there are 3 Bluetongue vaccines approved for use in the EU, which can be used in England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland as well. But as with all vaccines, that incurs an expense, Charles. And if you have a big herd or a flock, that could mean a hefty bill. So this week, the INHFA, that's the Natura and Hill Farmers, called on the government to help subsidise the vaccine for farmers. John Joe Fitzgerald, the Vice President of the INHFA, told Agriland that he has been told that the vaccine could cost around €9 each for cattle and €4.50 for sheep. So he said, and this is a quote from him, "We could do without having the worry of the cost associated with the vaccine. We have enough to worry about." So the department came back to him and they told him that it's an individual decision for each farm enterprise and that it would not be supporting the costs involved. Fitzgerald also told us that the department confirmed to him that the likes of pour-ons are not effective against the virus. So that's something for farmers to be aware of. And just while we are on the subject there of Bluetongue, of course, heavy restrictions have not been enforced around the Bluetongue detections in Wexford just yet. As I mentioned earlier, at this time of year, it doesn't make it high risk for the spread. But that doesn't mean that there are no movement changes. So current Bluetongue restrictions mean that movements of cattle and sheep from the Republic of Ireland to Northern Ireland or Britain are not allowed. other than directly to slaughter. And we might bring in Breifne O'Brien a little on this shortly. But the current line from DAFM is that Bluetongue vaccines do not have an established duration of immunity, so cannot be used as a basis for certification currently. So while this is the case for animals going to Northern Ireland for breeding or further feeding, cattle can still be moved to or from Northern Ireland to the Republic directly for slaughter. Slaughter moves are permitted once cattle come from establishments in which infection with Bluetongue has not been reported during the last 30 days prior to the date of departure of the consignment. With several sales of pedigree bulls and heifers as well as commercial breeding stock taking place this month, this news that the current restrictions will mean no Northern Ireland customers can purchase cattle in these sales being disappointing for farmers selling livestock that traditionally target these markets, and we might be able to chat to Breifne further on it. But at the moment there is no risk, high risk certainly anyway, of spread of Bluetongue, because Bluetongue cannot be spread by cattle. It has to be spread by midges. So one infected midge bites an animal, it infects that animal. If that infected midge then goes to another animal, it then infects that animal. But as it is too cold, you have to have temperatures consistently above 12 degrees Celsius to be able for the midges to spread the virus. And we don't have that at the moment. It's unlikely that it can spread. When it comes to April and May, it'll be a different story. We'll have milder temperatures and the midges will be out again. So that's a decision for farmers to make with their local vet, whether the cost-benefit ratio, it'll be different for every farm, and whether or not it's worth them getting the vaccine to reduce the clinical signs. And clinical signs could mean, that ewes or cows might abort animals, they might abort the calves or lambs. It could also be a reduction in milk yield or milk production, and that's a big consideration for dairy farmers. So it'll really come down to discussing it with their own vet on whether or not it's something that they want to do. But at the moment the government is saying it will not subsidise it, Charles.
Well, for more on the trade aspect of this, we will bring in Breifne. Breifne, the Bluetongue situation has thrown the live trade into disarray at the moment, and you recently got an insight into that when you spoke to Seamus Scallon of Wicklow Calf Company. What concerns did Seamus raise?
Yeah, that's right, Charles. So last week, Agriland paid a visit to Wicklow Calf Company's yard down in County Wicklow and met with, obviously, the company founder, Seamus Scallon. So he did highlight, I suppose, that he had some concerns there on, I suppose, markets for calves heading into the coming peak calf sale season. He didn't really pour cold water on calf prices, in fairness to him. And he did highlight that it looks as though the Netherlands and Spain, which is the two key markets for Irish calves, is set to remain open as it presently looks. Obviously, this is still a very fluid situation. But I suppose what he was highlighting on today was that the requirements for calves to gain access to the Polish market, they're not feasible and they're not currently workable. So Wicklow Calf Company did have a meeting with the department this week, and they were hoping to get to a conclusion where there might be more workable requirements, associated with getting calves out to this market. The PCR test is manageable, but I think the issues are with there's a pour-on application, an insecticide that has to go on to the calves, and I think it needs to be 2 weeks before the date of export, so it's not feasible for the calf export companies to put this on and to apply this to the calves. And they're hoping that the farmers themselves that are producing the calves could do this and maybe sign some sort of a waiver or a form to confirm that they have done this. So I suppose while he does seem confident on the Spanish and the Netherlands, the Dutch market, he's not so sure about the Polish market this year for Irish calves. But again, they are hoping that they will get some sort of a resolution with the Irish authorities and the Polish, of course, as well.
And this is also having an impact for buyers as well as sellers, particularly in Northern Ireland. What are the concerns up there?
Yeah, so I suppose while the calves are one part of the trade, that really depends on other countries, it's also an issue in the trade for older cattle and sheep as well, but pedigree cattle and, the commercial cattle in particular as well. And, any pedigree breeders or breeders of, top-end commercial breeding cattle will testify that, the customers from Northern Ireland and mainland UK are regularly in at the high end of the market on prices for these types of cattle. But obviously, since the Bluetongue outbreak, cattle from the Republic of Ireland cannot be traded to Northern Ireland except for direct slaughter. So cattle for further feeding or breeding cannot be traded, and then the same goes for cattle from Northern Ireland to the Republic of Ireland. Agriland has been contacted by some farmers who have had cattle to sell in private sales to customers in Northern Ireland. These now can't go ahead. The department did just get back to Agriland today and say that they are continuing to work with the authorities in Northern Ireland and of course on the mainland UK as well, and they're hoping that they can come to resolution on this. There's pedigree sales taking place there, the first one of the year in Carrick-on-Shannon this weekend, sale of pedigree bulls, and I suppose the breeders are concerned that the customers from Northern Ireland and the UK won't be there, so it'll be interesting to see if that impact is felt on the trade there. But hopefully again the authorities can get to some sort of a resolution on it, Charles.
Thanks for that, Breifne. We'll move on now, and the Association of Farm and Forestry Contractors in Ireland, the FCI, has published its annual charges guide for 2026. The FCI has noted that costs have soared for its members, and that's reflected in the 4% annual increase in the charges they've issued. So what do farmers need to know here, Stella?
Yeah, Charles, the guide figures from FCI are produced by collating an average figure for each operation from a panel of FCI contract members, along with a member survey across all of the association's membership during October 2025. So that's how they came up with these figures for this year. So due to local and sectoral circumstances, the actual guide charge will vary between regions, across soil types, distance travelled, the size of the contract undertaking, the size and type of equipment used, as well as the scale of the work done. So there will be some variations, as you can imagine, but these would be more the average price, I would say. So FCI said that it's aware that many contractors make individual arrangements with their client farmers regarding diesel, so that's another consideration. The guide charges don't reflect this market trend, and agreements such as that make a significant difference to contracting charges, so do bear that in mind. Now, the following that I'm going to list out is an abridged version of the guide, and all of these prices include VAT at 13.5%. So if you can bear with me, I'll run through some of the prominent figures for farming. These won't be all of them, they're just some headline topics, but you can get the full list on the Agriland app or on the website. But just in terms of baling, for example, so bale, wrap, stack and move, that includes plastic of 4 layers. Extra layers will be an additional cost, and that's looking at about 26 to 28 euro a bale. So baling silage in 4x4s is about €10 to €10.50 a bale. When you're looking at hay, we might just go to round bales of hay, 4x4s, €8 or €9 a bale. And then let's go down to straw. If we look at round bales of straw, either in 4x4 or 5x4 size, €8 to €9 a bale again. We'll move on to the likes of cultivation now and ploughing. So min-till cultivation per pass, you're looking, Charles, at €44 to €47 an acre. Ploughing stubble, €59 to €60 an acre. If you're doing the plough, till and sowing the grain, the figure there, you'd be looking at €130 to €135 an acre. Moving to the more like drilling and sowing side of things, if you're going for conventional grain or fertiliser, you're looking at a cost there of about €61 to €66 an acre. Direct drilling, €70 to €74 an acre. And maybe grass seeding, the quality of the job, the seeding and the rolling. This doesn't include the price of the seed, by the way. This is just for the seeding itself. You're looking at €309 to €315 an acre. Now, fertiliser, which most farmers use, let's look at that. You're talking 2 bags per acre, €55 a tonne, or 118 an hour. If you're looking at fertiliser application in terms of broadcasting general, €55 a tonne. Bulk spreading, €55 a tonne as well. And then in terms of lime spreading, €10.50 to €12.50 a tonne. So a lot less there for the lime spreading. Might be an option for farmers this year. In terms of spraying liquid nitrogen, you're looking at €110 an hour. When it comes to harvest or combining cereals and oilseed rape, €82 to €88 an acre. If you want the chopping included, so cereals, oilseed rape and chopping, you're looking at €95 to €102 an acre. And grain transport up to 15 kilometres is about €12 to €14 a tonne. Don't forget your hedge cutting. A hedge cutter for flail, 76 to €82 an hour. If you want hedge cutter with the saw head, 95 to €102 an hour. And then mulching the hedges, you're looking at about 102 to €113 an hour. On to silage now, mowing conditioner, 31 to €33 an acre. Raking then, tedding or rowing, 18 to €20 an acre. Let's go down here through the list. Whole crop silage, Charles, if you want the complete job in the pit, you're going to look at 217 to €222 an acre. I'll just move on maybe to a bit of slurry and muck spreading. So muck loading in a wheeled loader, you're looking at 82 to €88 an hour. Muck spreading, 14 tonne, 110 to €123 an hour. Slurry agitation, 124 to 147 an hour. Then if you look at slurry spreading, let's go with the smaller gallon tanker, the 1500 gallon tanker, that's 82 to €88 an hour. And if you go with the dribble bar, which obviously is common now, which is 2500 gallon tanker, 108 to 114 an hour. The trailing shoe then a little bit more expensive for the 2500 gallon tanker. You're looking at 114 to €127 an hour. Now that's just a bit of an overview. There are also plant hire charges and forestry charges, but a full list of all the charges for 2026 can be found, Charles, on the Agriland site or app for farmers. If they want to have a look, just type FCI into the search bar there.
Now, we started the show this week by talking about an appearance at an Oireachtas committee, but Larry Murrin wasn't the only high-profile person to appear before TDs and senators this week. 2 European commissioners were in town to address the European Affairs Committee, namely Budget Commissioner Peter Serafin and Agriculture Commissioner Christoph Hansen. Serafin was in Ireland to speak about the EU's long-term budget post-2027, and Hansen was here to speak about the CAP aspect of that. But of course, Stella, once Hansen got in front of the committee, a range of other issues, most notably the EU-Mercosur trade agreement, were brought up. So can you give us a rundown of the visit by these 2 commissioners?
Yes, Charles, as you mentioned, the 2 commissioners were in Ireland this week, and actually that was quite an important visit, but unfortunately, I suppose the visit was somewhat overshadowed by other matters in agricultural news. Ireland has major concerns about the drop in funding for the next CAP. So this meeting was an important one to start hammering across to the powers that be in the EU our position that it needs to be financed more appropriately. We will host the EU presidency in the second half of this year. And if we are to have any influence or position regarding CAP or the multi-financial framework, the MFF, that's basically the EU budget, by then, the groundwork really has to be done now. So Commissioners Hansen and Serafin met with the Taoiseach, the Simon Harris, the Agriculture Minister Martin Hayden and Minister for EU Affairs Thomas Byrne. Now the Agriculture Commissioner Christoph Hansen was really put through his paces, as you mentioned, particularly on the EU-Mercosur Partnership Agreement during his appearance at the Joint Oireachtas Committee on EU Affairs. The trade agreement took up a large part of the discussions, with members of both the European Affairs Committee and the Agriculture and Food Committee, which was invited to participate. They asked questions. So, addressing concerns raised from members of both committees, Commissioner Hansen would not be drawn on whether the European Commission would move ahead and provisionally apply the EU-Mercosur interim trade agreement before it's approved by the European Parliament. Commissioner Hansen also referenced trade tensions with the US and China in defence of having trade agreements such as Mercosur based on common rules, as he called them. In relation to the safeguard mechanism that has been proposed to go hand in hand with the trade deal to protect sensitive sectors such as agriculture, Commissioner Hansen suggested that the reactions of some political leaders within the Mercosur countries, so that's Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay and Uruguay, Those reactions show that the safeguards will be effective. So and to quote him, he said, "This is something unprecedented." And when you look at the reactions of President of Argentina, Milei, for example, or other political leaders, they don't like that at all, because they know that this safeguard clause is going to bite. So those are the words of Commissioner Hansen. In relation to questions about Brazilian beef, Hansen said, "The Brazilians can produce for their population whatever they want, or they can produce whatever they want for the Chinese if they want to accept it. But for us, it is very important. We have very high standards. It's not allowed to use growth hormones, for example. So for us, it must be clear that these products cannot come in if it doesn't comply to our standards." So those are the words of Christoph Hansen, the Agriculture Commissioner. Now, the two commissioners met with farm organisations, and basically the commissioners were told that the current allocation of funding for the CAP is inadequate and needs to be revised upwards, Charles.
Finally this week, Gardaí in Donegal have appealed for information after a number of thefts of home heating oil in rural areas. Can you tell us more about this, Stella?
Yeah, that's right, Charles. Gardaí have told us that the thefts occurred in the Market Square area of Rathmullen between January 16th and January 29th. Now, Garda officers noted that the gardens of two neighbouring properties were entered and the oil was stolen from their tanks. Following an investigation, one of the tanks was found to have been left unlocked, while the other tank had been locked but was cut open during the theft. Now, naturally enough, Gardaí in Milford there in Donegal have encouraged the public to contact them, and they have a phone number there on Agriland on the story if you want to get in contact. If they noticed or observed any type of suspicious activity, or if they have like a doorbell camera or CCTV footage near the area between those dates. You can also call the Garda Confidential line, which you can get online or on your phone if you type in Garda Confidential line. And this is something that isn't just confined to Donegal. We've been speaking to people in the West Roscommon, East Galway area as well, and home heating oil theft seems to be on the up, with reports from people that their kerosene was taken. The thing about home heating oil is it's very difficult to track. If you mark your property, like your tools or your equipment, with the Garda property marking events that they offer, if it's retrieved, it can be retrieved and you can have your identifying piece of information on the equipment. With home heating oil, it's difficult because how do you track it? It's gone. They tend to come in the dark of night. If you don't have a camera system or you don't have a lock, and even if you do have a lock on the home heating oil tank, they can still get in with their hose by a side road, by a front road, and they jump a wall with the hose and they siphon the oil out and then they're gone. So it's very difficult to track. So in terms of preventing things like this, some of the advice from the Gardaí could be: make sure that you have a closed shackle padlock on the tank opening. Check the oil levels frequently, because sometimes they don't siphon out all of the oil and therefore there might be a little left and you might not notice that it's gone for some weeks, whereas if you check it frequently you might be able to narrow down a time should they steal it. Try to arrange smaller, more frequent oil deliveries if your local delivery company can facilitate that. Make sure you put in security lights. They can be a really big deterrent and make property much harder of a target for thieves. Place the tank as close to the house as regulations will allow and in view of windows. Ensure the tank is not visible from the road or to passing traffic, and plants or shrubs or building a fence can help hide the tanks from public view. And maybe consider fitting an alarm system that warns you if the oil level drops suddenly. But be vigilant, especially after a delivery, and be aware that thieves may return to steal replacement oil following the initial theft. Because in Ireland, we might just think, God, they would never have the gall, after you replace your oil, if you can afford to do so, and you replace the fill of oil, say after it's been taken the first time, and they could come back and take it the second time. So I would suggest having the CCTV or those, Ring doorbell type cameras. They aren't that expensive if you go online and install them around your diesel or kerosene tank, and make sure you have a good lock on it, and maybe one of those sensor lights really does help to deter thieves.
And with that very important advice, we'll leave it there for this week. Please don't forget to rate, review and follow The Farming Week on Spotify, Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love if you could spare some time to give us 5 stars and share The Farming Week with anyone you think might be interested. From Stella, Breifne, and myself, take care.